Reloading for the Wanzl 58 centerfire. Now this is a very odd and unique cartridge. I've found no information on it. And where it all started is when I got this Wanzl extra core carbine that, unlike the Wanzl rifle, this is a centerfire, where the Wanzl rifle is a rimfire. They're based, I guess, on the Lorenz musket. So the rimfire version were basically Lorenz muskets converted, and they were 54 caliber muzzle loaders. So they ended up being, in their cartridge conversion, a 54 rimfire, and this is what the Austrians eventually adopted, okay, for a period of time. This little gun is an X-Core carbine, and it has a Wanzl style, and it's actually marked Wanzl on the barrel conversion. But from what I could find out, this was an experimental version. One, it's in centerfire, and two, I thought it was a 54 caliber. It is not. It is a 58 caliber, which there is zero information, no drawings, no dimensions, no anything for that cartridge. The only reference you see is that civilian guns were made in that caliber, or for the Wanzl centerfire. They give you no size or dimension, nothing. Okay, very rare. So I have an experimental gun with an experimental cartridge that you can find zero information, at least in English or in the United States, on the weapon. How I found out about what it was I contacted a friend in Austria who contacted a guy who writes books on Austrian guns and is, a dealer and somewhat of a scholar, Yashi Sur, I believe. Actually, one of his books is up for sale on the on Gunbroker, so I have to get it. So after contacting that man, they relayed the message to me that this was a prototype. The gun is serial numbered 99, and they only may have made 100 of these conversions. So that's the story on the gun. So we have a gun with an odd cartridge. There's very little information on it. So how do we go about reloading for it? Well, what I decided to do, and because the chamber, it was a muzzle loader, so the chamber must have been reamed out or something. It's not quite that smooth. What I did was take a chamber casting and slug the bore, and come to find out they were almost identical measurements to the Snyder conversion. It would be the 5.77 or 58 caliber muzzle loader converted to cartridge. That comes out in metric to about 14.6 millimeter. So I'm calling it the 58 Wanzl centerfire, but it's 14.6, and from the chamber casting, seems to be by 38 millimeters long. The case length is 38 or 37 and a half. So let's look at the finer things, and I'll show you the bullet mold, and that. We'll take a look at that close up here, and I'll show you the chamber casting and all that other stuff. Okay, so we took our measurements on the gun and decided we're going to use the same bullet. We'll start with the bullet. I'm going to use the same bullet and I was using for the Snyder. So what I had for the Snyder is I bought this NOE bullet mold, 582, 541 RF, BUS2, 4 cavity hollow base. Now what's interesting about this mold is that it comes with several little metal inserts attached to it. And you can make two types of hollow bases and make this a solid base bullet. Now, that's pretty neat. So what I did is when I set this up, everybody was going with the thicker skirt on the hollow base for the, and there are all the little, there's 3 sets of these little steel pins, plugs. With a pretty short and thicker base. I may change these out and try this longer, deeper hollow base to get more accuracy out of it. I don't know, but for right now I use the other one, and it produces this bullet here, 58 caliber with grooves, and you see the hollow base. I'm going with a hollow base bullet other than going like with a 600 diameter, and I'm just, whatever these dropped out, which is probably close to 582 because I had to bore out the brass about 585, so that's the diameter of the bullet. There's one with some black powder lube on it, and the bullet weighs in this configuration, because each one of them plugs that you change will change the bullet's configuration. Bullets roughly weighing 462, so you'd say 475, and a lot of it 463 grains, 64 grains with the lube. So that's the bullet we're going to try out. This is all trial and error. So now we got a bullet, had that in stock, so that's what we're going to use. So now we go back. All right, how do you make the case? Well, you're not going to get any cases. You're not going to be able to, I don't think you can, form it from something. So what I did is I made a chamber casting in my slug. So from the chamber casting, the overall length is roughly about 1.5 inches to where it starts to engage the rifling. I don't know if there's a throat, so I played it safe and made the overall length 1 inch 450 thousandths, where you got about 1.5 inches to play with. It looks like with the overall length. Now the case is fairly straight. It does have a slight taper to it. So what I was trying to do, and to make this case, I took the dimensions, and just by guessing, trial and error, I turned a brass case from solid bar stock. So I put a brass bar in there, turned the outside, bored it out, cut out the center, and then finished it up, parted it off, and then I turned it. Now I was experimenting, trying to put a taper, cut a taper on this. I found that basically I'd have to finish them by hand to get them so they chamber. I haven't quite developed what, it should have a taper to it, about 30 thousandths from the neck to the base here. But I may make that lighter. And what I tried to achieve is just a sleeve which will fit inside the chamber, hold the case and the powder, or hold the bullet in the powder and go off. And then basically be reusable. I can take it out, clean it, hopefully it'll fit in there again and be reusable. So that's why case dimensions or whatever, and basically just pressing the bullets down into the case. So I had one cartridge. I did an experiment where I had one, fired it, and found that the chamber was kind of odd shaped and it bulges it, but I think I found a way to tune these up. So after turning, I only have 9 of them. I'm going to go with that until I make an awful lot of them, see how they stand up before I start making a ton of them. So I got the brass, okay? So I turned the brass, trial and error, got something that fits in there. The breech closes with no problems or hang-ups, and you have to be careful with that because the way that gun works, when the hammer goes down, that metal pin slides in and locks the breech. If your breech ain't closed all the way because the rim's too thick or one of the case diameters are off, the gun may not A, fire or not lock up right or have a misfire. So something to watch out for. Alright, so we got a bullet, we made our brass. Now we're going to go and I'm going to break off, and I primed these yesterday, so I got a little video showing you how I prime them. Pretty simple. Get the primer in there and then kind of drive it down with a wooden dowel on steel plate. Okay, as for priming the brass, I know to set up the lighting and everything, but eventually I may make a shell holder and then be able to use my regular primer seater. But for now, what we have to do is I got this vise and this flat steel plate on the back end of it. So you clean it off the best you can, make sure there's no debris on it. Take your case and then just take a primer, and what I do is try to line it up the best I can there on the back like that. Kind of push down on it a little and you'll see where it isn't quite square. So what I do is basically take it and tap it until it looks fairly square in there and it even looks straight. Then take a wooden dowel, put that down into the case. You got to be careful. If you do set the primer off with a wooden dowel, and I take a mallet and just give it a tap until you've seated it. Run your finger on there, sticking up a hair. So I'll put the dowel back in. Give it another tap. Check it. And we're good. So basically that's a simple way to prime it, deprime it. You use the Lee Universal Deprimer. I finished these pockets by hand with a hand tool. So you might find one like this one here. That's flush. But I may go run that thing in there and try to make the pocket a little deeper. Well, I hope that explains how I prime them up. For the powder charge, the one cartridge I use 1F. I have some Go X cartridge which is no longer made, so I figured this would be ideal. And if I like the results with this, I'll go with Go X Einsford 1.5, because basically that's what cartridge was back in the day for they made a 1.5. And like I said, I was going to go with 55 grains. That is by weight. Yeah, a little bit too much. And I just use a scoop, non-sparking plastic box container to scoop it out of. And there's about 55. Alright, then all I do is put it into the case. Watch it like that. And then, generally, I found the 55 grains, at least one, and the bullet should kind of just press in there. That one may not fit. Hold on a second. Alright, like I said, 55 grains of powder, and I did get a uniform dimension to make these cases. Now it should just slip in there and press down. Pressing down with my thumb, you see this one went in a little bit deeper than it should have. I kind of have a variance in the case capacity, but that's fine. So that's it. Now press down. Now what I was doing, I was taking like a prick punch and hitting the lead and trying to get it to where it locks down. But I found something else I can use, and that'll be in our next step. So what I'm going to do is charge these and seat these bullets down in the rest of the cases. And then we'll go on to an idea I had. But as you see, like this one here, I really would have wanted that bullet seat up a little higher, but it's about 32nd below. Now we got to try to fix the case and see how it works. That'll be the next step. Okay, so this is what I ended up with in my first batch of experimentation. And this is the first time I ever attempted this. If you notice, these here are like higher. Well, these two I was experimenting with, and I tried doing something with these cases. But the majority of them, the depth and the case capacity is just about the same. The bullets set down on the powder charge the same. And basically what I did is give them all a tap to kind of compress them down in there. I should make some sort of sizing die, size them closer to where they fit, but then after I fire these, I have to see what diameter they end up being. The bullets may go in. And what I did, because I don't have any way to crimp these, and they're going way into the case, I dipped them in bullet lube, black powder bullet lube, and then got it to where it kind of ran down into the case as a sealant. And I just take my thumbnail, shave off the extra lube around the case, and it should get me to chamber well, but still is using the lubricant. A is an added thing to soften the black powder, and B to hold the bullet in place. I'm going to handle these cartridges very gently, but I believe that I will have to make some sort of resizing dies for this case, my own. It'll all be out of 1 1/4 stock, just like the ones for the Henry Martini and the Snyder. And I got the threaded rod, so I can make the bodies fairly easily. I'd have to make some sort of a sizing die to resize these like this, because you have to. They won't just go back into the gun. This is the one I fired the other time. I'd have to make a sizing die and then an expanding plug and the whole 9 yards. Basically a standard set of dies, homemade dies of some sort to do this. And then that way I could get better results. Some sort of seating die, compression plugs, because some of this is compressed now. That's why I don't want to take a chance of having an air pocket, so I tamped them down. And I just got to handle this carefully. So it's my first shot at making a totally obsolete cartridge. And yeah, I'd have to make a shell holder too. Okay, that's 70 thousandths thick and almost 800 in diameter. I don't really think there's anything. I'm just better off making one for it. So there's my first attempt at reloading a totally obsolete cartridge, kind of blind, just going by a chamber casting and guessing, you know, measuring the bore and at what might work. We'll see how this works. And I have a basis here, so we'll take this and go. I do have more stock to turn more of these. But I'm going to take this and see how it goes, see how it is with reloading, and it's all trial and error and experimentation until we get it. But it looks like I'm going to have to make some sort of dies. I mean, CH4D, they could probably do it. He told me if I sent him a chamber cast, and he'd make me a set of dies. But the only thing is, on his standard stuff, he's a year and a half behind, 2 years behind. So if I did that, I wouldn't get a set of dies till 3 years from now. So, but hopefully we'll go out and we'll try to shoot these through the gun, see how we do. And that's my first crack at an obsolete cartridge. Not exactly my finest work, but a good start.